I was told a really disturbing story recently, and it's taken me a little while to be able to put this video together because, yeah, it's quite frightening, but I do feel like it could raise awareness and potentially help someone stay out of danger. So if you use Tinder, this video is for you. So this actually happened to a friend of a friend of a friend. So I don't actually know the person. So if this is you, I do apologise, but I was told this story and I do think that sharing it could potentially help someone. So a lady, she was speaking to a guy on Tinder. They were talking for a couple of weeks. They hadn't FaceTimed, but they were talking on the phone and WhatsApping constantly. They arranged to meet at a bar in London, a bar that he chose. On the day, she said she felt a little bit uneasy, so she decided to ask her best friend to come with her. So her best friend went into the bar first, where she was meeting this guy. Let's call him Adam, and we'll call her Jane. So Jane's friend has gone into the bar about 5 minutes before Jane did. Jane then goes in, going in to meet Adam. So Adam's not there when Jane gets there. Jane's waiting there for about 10 minutes. Her friend is in eyesight at the bar. So she's just waiting at the bar, just making sure everything's okay. Adam then walks in. Now she notices straight away that Adam's pictures had definitely been enhanced. He looked different to the pictures what she'd shown. Now he had a Essex accent. So he sat down, they've had a little chat, they're talking, they're getting on fine. Jane then says, right, I'm just going to pop to the loo, because they were talking about going to another bar. So she gets up, goes to the toilet. Her friend is watching. As her friend watches, she notices Adam put something in to Jane's drink. She then runs towards the toilet to let Jane know. When she told Jane this, Jane said something does feel off. There's something about this person. It's just not sitting right with me. Something's not sitting right. So Jane's friend then says, fine, let's leave. They walk towards the exit of the bar. As they're leaving, there is a large van outside with 5 men. They're all looking at the girls, looking at them in a strange way, as if they recognise Jane. All of a sudden, Adam comes running out of the bar towards them. Jane and her friend start to run towards the main road, and Adam starts to shout at them in a different language. They said they're not sure what language it was, but the men that he was with outside, they looked Eastern European. So they all then were together, and Jane believes that they were trying to kidnap her, or trying to drug her and get her into that van. Now, this story gave me chills, and I've actually tried to film this video about 4 times now and struggled, because imagine that. Like, I won't even want to imagine that. So please, guys, if you are using online dating, there are so many different things that can go wrong. You don't know who these people are, so please always make sure you FaceTime them. You know exactly who you're talking to. Check if they have social media. Just be really, really wary. Meet in a place that you know, that you've chosen, somewhere there's lots of people around. And just be very, very, very careful and safe.
Tinder date from Little Hell story time. He literally sent me abusive messages calling me crazy, saying that I used him and that I was basically nuts for no reason. So I'm 18 on Tinder. Matched with a guy, we're getting along pretty well. He lives really close, so I'm like, why not? Let's catch up. First date was like average, nothing that weird. Although he kept winking at me, being like, haha. And I'd be like, what? And he did it like 5 times. And I was like, hey, can you stop winking at me? I don't know why. Like, it just makes me feel uncomfortable. And then he's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, all right, whatever. Also, important part of the story, he told me that he was a virgin on our first date. And I said I didn't care, obviously, because why would I care? Anyway, second date. This is where it gets bad. We go bowling. A girl that I know, we're not really friends. We're more like mutual friends. She sees me at bowling and she's like, oh my God, hey, like I'm here with my boyfriend. I'll introduce you to him. She brings over her boyfriend and I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. Whatever. So the guy that I'm going on a date with, let's call him Bob. So Bob and I are walking out of bowling and he's not speaking to me. And I'm like, Bob, what's wrong? And he's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Kept saying, don't worry about it. And I was like, just tell me. And he was like, well, you could have like introduced me. I've known you for 2 days. I'm not introducing you to my friends or someone that is not even my friend. Honestly, if he said it in a nicer way, I would have just said sorry, but... Anyway, so we're driving home and he's like, Annalise, I have to tell you something. I've lied to you. And I'm like, what have you already lied to me about? I've known you for 2 days. So he pulls over the car dramatically and he's like, obviously I'm not a virgin. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm so embarrassed. Like I went clubbing and I lost my virginity to this like 30-year-old. I'm so embarrassed, so embarrassed. So I was like, okay, that's kind of odd that you lied about that. But anyway, so he's driving me home and he sees a group of people he used to be friends with. So he's like, oh my God, I can't believe they didn't invite me. So he parks in front of them and is just spying on them, staring at them whilst I'm in the car. So I'm just sitting in the car like, what is happening right now? Whilst we're in the car, I just wanted to make it very clear with him, like, hey, just letting you know, I'm not interested. I just got out of a relationship. I just got cheated on. You know, just not looking for anything at the moment. So I thought it was very clear that I didn't want to speak to him again. Anyway, drives me home and he's like, I need to ask you something. And I'm like, what do you need to ask me? He's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm like, just tell me. Like, just tell me. I hate beating around the bush. And he was like, when would you be ready to like do stuff with me? What? So I was like, I don't know, like maybe tomorrow, maybe never. I meant never. I get home, I'm barely messaging him because I'm weirded out, confused. He's just kind of rude and odd. I'm still replying here and there just to be nice. Eventually he sends me a paragraph like this bloody big saying that every time he goes on dates with girls, he gets used, that he's such a nice guy, he doesn't know why this happens to him, that I've used him for nights out. Also, I'm pretty sure I paid for the second date, so it was like 50-50 paying for dates. So I didn't use him for anything. And he said that I used him for nights out. And I was like, why would I use you for nights out when I can have nights out with my friends? And then he was like, why would you even go on a date with me if you don't want a relationship? And I was like, look, I didn't know what I was looking for. I just wanted to go on a date, meet a new person. It made me realize, you know, like I'm still in love with my ex, okay? I'm still in love with him. We'd only been broken up for like 3 months, so like kind of valid. And then he was like, you're crazy. Like, I can't believe you've said that. Like, what you're saying is nuts. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I just said in the nicest way possible, hey, I'm not interested. Best of luck. I still have feelings for my ex. Sorry. He proceeds for the next... This was in 2019. He proceeds for the next 3 years to message me. Like, every 6 months, yeah, he would message me like, hey, how are you? Or like message me on Instagram and be like, oh my God, hi. And then he would delete the message when I wouldn't reply. Like, sir, it makes sense why this happens to you when you lie about random stuff on first dates. Say that I'm using you for dates when I paid for half the dates. Like, what? If you want more story times and you got through this whole video, feel free to follow me. I have plenty of juicy story times. Also, if my mum is watching this, I'm so sorry. This happened like 5 years ago. And I didn't tell you that I was going on this date because I knew you wouldn't let me go. Love you, Mum.
This is probably one of the most vile dating stories I've ever heard of in my entire life. I don't know if y'all are following what's the developing story of the tabi swiper overall across the pond in NYC, but I will fill you in if you have not heard of it. So there's this girlie, she's out in NYC living her best life. She's on Tinder swiping. She matches with this guy, but no one messages each other. They don't, nothing happens. Then she's out in Soho or somewhere in Central, in New York. And she locks eyes with this guy. She thinks he's kind of cute and he looks familiar, but no one makes a move. She doesn't think much of it. She gets home, checks her phone, and sees that there's a message on Tinder and from the dude. And he's like, oh, like, it was nice to run into you today. They get to chatting. They go on a date, a couple drinks. A couple days later, goes well. They follow up again. Then they have a second date. That goes even better. So she's decided to bring him back to her place. They get to chatting. He sees that she has a nice collection of shoes, one of them being tabis. He's also into fashion. They can talk, and they have a great time together. Next morning, she goes to the shower. He asked to use her phone because he wanted to show her Spotify playlist or something that he didn't have Spotify on his phone. First red flag. She goes, yeah, no problem, dude. Gives her the phone. He goes through. She comes home, and he leaves after that. She's going about her day. A couple hours later, she looks over to her shoe rack and she realizes that her tabis are gone. And she goes, oh man, I must have just misplaced them. She scours her entire apartment, looks, cannot find the shoes. Then she's like, that's kind of strange. They had just been talking about these with this dude that morning. She goes to text him, be like, just to make sure that something isn't awry. Homeboy deleted his phone number from her phone. He deleted their call log history. He deleted all the text messages, and he unmatched with her on Tinder. So then she's like, oh, this man stole my shoes. So then she goes to TikTok, thank you TikTok, and makes a TikTok about the story. And the girlies do what we do. We track this man down, only to find out that he not only had a girlfriend the entire time, but he gave the shoes to his girlfriend because I guess her and the girlfriend were the exact same size shoe. And because TikTok has blessed us with the engagement for this video, the poor girlfriend, imagine being this girlfriend. She posted it on her Instagram story. Oh, my boyfriend, he bought me these new tabis, just for one of her girlfriends or one of her friends to DM her in response to that Instagram story, the video of a woman talking about how the fact that her shoes were stolen. So then she has to give the shoes back to the boyfriend, the cheating boy. I mean, I assume it's cheating ex-boyfriend at this point. So then he can go and return the shoes back to the woman that he stole them from. And all of this, we have to thank TikTok and the girlies for boosting the engagement. But this is probably one of the craziest stories I've ever heard of, ever. And if you're interested in following it as it develops, just type in the tabi swiper in TikTok, because I'm sure there's loads of info.
This is why I deleted my Tinder and why every single girl watching this needs to delete her Tinder too. This happened a few years ago and I honestly consider myself so incredibly lucky to be alive after experiencing this. I was living in New York City at the time and I matched with a guy. For the entire time we were talking, he was really aggressively trying to get me to go out with him. And eventually I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna let this guy take me out on a date. Maybe I'm just being judgmental. Maybe he's not being desperate. Maybe he's just putting in an effort. So the day of the date rolls around and he tells me that he wants to take me out to a restaurant that is a bit of a hidden gem and is a little bit outside of the city in an area of Westchester called Yonkers. And even though he offered to drive me, I was like, no, it's all good. I actually had my own car in New York City, so I agreed to meet up with him. Now, I feel like an absolute idiot because I didn't even Google this place before I went. So on the night of the date, I'm driving to this place. I put it into my GPS and it's really weird because as soon as I see it in the GPS, it says that the place is closed. So I text my date and I'm like, hey, I just put this place into the GPS and it is telling me that it is actually closed. To which he replies, oh no, don't worry. They're really bad at updating their hours. This is the part where I should have just been like, oh hell no, and I should have canceled the date. But somehow I decided it would be a good idea to get in my car and drive 40 minutes to Yonkers for a date with a guy. So after 40 minutes of driving in traffic, I arrive at this place in Yonkers. I pull up to the building and I quickly realize that there is nobody in the parking lot and that indeed this business is really closed. Not to mention, my car is the only car in the parking lot. So I start to panic, and as I look behind me to put my car in reverse, I notice another car pull up. This car pulls up right beside me. I don't even look at the person sitting in the car. I just simply back up out of that parking lot as fast as I can, and I get the heck out of there. The entire way home, I am just looking in my rear view mirror to see if there's anyone behind me, and thankfully there was not. And the craziest part of all of this is when I got home, I went back onto that dating app and I could see that the profile had unmatched with me. I never got a chance to screenshot that profile. I never learned the guy's last name, but I can't tell you guys how many times I've heard this happening to girls on dating apps. It's not worth it. Just delete it for your own safety. And if you are going to be on dating apps, please always make sure to get the person's last name and to meet in a place that you are familiar with.
Hi, my name is Taylor, and I'm going to tell you about one of my Tinder horror stories. So anyway, I was 18 and I had just kind of gotten on Tinder, and I was talking to this guy, talked for a while, and he was like, do you want to go out for drinks? And I was like, sure, sounds good. Go to this drink place. I get there first. He says he's approaching me. I look up. The man that is approaching me looks nothing like his pictures, like vaguely, but also not really at all. So he also looked way, way older than what he looked like. And I was like, oh, red flag. Anyway, get to the date, and it was horrible. We were talking and it was so awkward. We had almost nothing in common. The conversation wasn't flowing. It was noticeably awkward for both of us. And I was 18. I didn't know any better. I should have just gotten up and said, hey, I'm going to go now. But I was kind of just dropping vague hints like, okay, well, it's getting late, I should go. And he'd be like, no, let me buy you another drink. So I stayed. Anyway, gets towards the end of the night, I go to leave, and he was like, oh, do you want to go for a walk on the boardwalk? Because we were on a beach. And I should have said no, but I did, and I went for a walk. And it was still noticeably awkward at this point. Anyway, we're walking, and Mans goes to grab my hand, and anybody who knows me, even at the age of 18, gross. I don't like it. So he goes to do that. I pulled my hand away, and it was really awkward, and I was like, oh, don't do that, please. And we're walking, and we get to the end of this boardwalk area, and Mans turns to me and goes to kiss me, and I was like, no. And I dodged it, and it was so awkward. And I'm pretty sure I was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Went to the bathroom, text my best friend everything that was happening. She was like, you gotta get out of there. Anyway, go back out, and I was like, yo, my best friend's dying. I have to go home right now. And he was like, okay, well, let me drive you home. And I should have said no, but I was like, after a bit of arguing, he ended up taking me home, get in his car. I get into his fucking passenger seat, and I look at the door, and I'm like, brethren, where is your door handle? And he was like, oh, sorry, this car only opens from the outside. And I was like, you could have told me that before I got in your car. Anyway, it drops me off. Get out the car, goes in for another kiss, and I was like, dude, don't. Anyway, I go back inside. Mans has the audacity. He texts me when I get inside. He was like, hey, Taylor, look, it was really fun hanging out with you, but I think this isn't going to work out between us. I think you're a fun girl, but I think, I don't think you're right for me. So we're just going to leave it there. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. If that's the call that you want to make, sure thing, broski. And then I went inside, and now I know how to leave dates that I don't want to be on anymore.
I went on a Tinder date with a serial killer. I'm gonna attempt to turn this into a makeup look while I tell you about it. I had just moved out to LA when this happened. I didn't know anyone, so my roommate suggested that I download Tinder to meet people. That wasn't one of my brightest ideas, and I matched with this guy who seemed really, really nice. I'd never used Tinder before, so I didn't realize there was this whole thing where you shouldn't have them come to your house. This guy's like, I want to meet, and I'm like, totally, come pick me up at my house. He arrives around the same time as my roommate's bed, and this is important. My roommate is bringing in the bed. He offers to build the bed for her. He builds her bed, and then he's like, do you want to go get some ice cream? We start walking to go get ice cream, and I see a pigeon. And I'm like, oh my gosh, have you read that book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus? Date small talk. It was actually my favorite book as a kid. It's about this pigeon that you're not supposed to let drive the bus. And he's like, no, but I did stab a pigeon 27 times in the eye until it died with a toothpick. This is before we get to the ice cream place. Like, we're on the way walking. At this point, I'm ready to turn around because why would you say that? This is not even the worst part. I stayed and got the ice cream, and you're gonna have to go to part 2.